All right, here we go. Hey, LinkedIn. It's Rick Garcia, G12 Communications. We have a huge show lined up for you today. There's
live from London.
Live from London. We have a lot of guest speakers on today. We've got our co-host Brandon Bradley here. We've got
Dan Pearson.
Dan Pearson from PingCo, CEO of PingCo. We've got Mr. Rick Coma, the CEO of G12, and Microsoft's favorite MVP, Tom Arbuthnot, on the show. How's it going, everyone?
Yeah, really good, thanks.
Good. Here we go.
And we missed our normal greeting. Good morning.
Good afternoon.
Good evening.
Well, really morning. It's 5 a.m. in Australia.
10 a.m. Pacific time. And what are we're starting the weekend here in London.
Yeah,
all right, so we're live from London or a suburb of London now. Okay, so today we have a really interesting discussion lined up for you. We're going to talk through why we're here in London, why G12 and TCAP and telecommunications organizations from around the world descended on London. And it's to understand what the telecom industry is doing these days and what you can expect, partners, enterprise customers, agents out there, what you guys can expect from the telecom space and what's interesting. So we came to this show. Spent a full day working with leadership from different organizations and what they're doing, and we all have our own opinions on what we thought was really interesting in the show because there's an exciting time. The transition right now, 2023, I would say, is going to be a really massive year when it comes to transitioning telco enterprises into what they're going to do, what they're going to be using in the future, right? So. I mean, let's start. Dan, what did you see that was pretty interesting at the show?
Yeah, it was an amazing show, and we get a lot of value out of coming to the CloudCom Summit. As you said, we get to meet with a bunch of industry leaders, mostly C-level product managers, and these are the guys that are designing the telco products of the future. So it's really great to be able to collaborate with all of those people. We're very excited. We launched our Teams Phone Mobile, so again, all around Teams specifically. In being able to enable that mobile and ultimate mobility tool for organizations. And yeah, I mean, the big thing for us is we get to hang out with all of our telco customers who are dominating the Teams space.
Well, we're going to get into that Teams Mobile a little bit because I want to explain to the audience what Teams Mobile looks like in an enterprise, right? What does that actually do? Because I think it's, people have heard what it looks like, what it's doing. And so now we'd like to kind of break it down to what the enterprise is going to see and feel in the future. Tom, what did you pull from the show?
Yeah, I really enjoy the development days because, as you said, there's a lot of people there from the industry, so it's very insider industry chat. I think even though it was a general cloud comms show, like it was pretty obvious that Teams is the dominant platform, so you need to have an option as a carrier. Like you can't ignore this. And although it's competitive out there, and lots of people are going for this, there's still a lot of opportunity in the space. They were talking about 50 million licensed users and only 12-15 million active at the moment. So all those E5 customers that have already got licenses are on a trajectory to Teams Phone. It's just it's a when, not an if.
So I think the number that we saw presented to us was something like 80% of the large enterprise customers are planning a migration to Teams at some point. Is that
Teams Phone?
Teams Phone. That's a really massive statistic when it comes to all the different platforms out there, because you did see the likes of 8x8 and Ring and Zoom and G12 and other carriers out there. So Teams is clearly the dominant player in this space these days in a short period of time.
Yeah, I found it, not just here at the summit, but I think we already see it with Teams Phone being a cloud-driven solution, but the summit just, I think, solidified it, that even the Zooms and Ring Centrals, there's a big push to the cloud. Your small business, your large enterprises, they're very interested in getting kind of away from that on-prem, and there was a lot of discussion around that. And I think the Teams ecosystem is a good place to be. Yeah, for that cloud play.
The space we're in is unique, right? The pandemic made everyone just go and sort something out for a short period of time. And now businesses and enterprise are having to rationalize their existing technology solutions. They're spending, a bucket load of money on maintaining systems and platforms that they maybe not using as fully as they used to. They've adopted other communication and UC strategies. And, naturally the Microsoft ecosystem, people are paying for a license. It's just a matter of activating the voice workload. And it sounds simple, but it really is. It's about simplifying the pathway or the process of getting to teams.
Rick, you and I have been in the business a long time in this. I mean, in telecom, 20 plus years. We'll leave it at 20. We'll cap it out at 20. So 20 plus years in the industry. Have you seen anything before that could potentially aggregate an entire industry? And I think, when you think about entire industry, small biz, different verticals, enterprises, anything like Teams before? Have you seen this at all?
No, I mean, I think, this is obviously the direction most people are going. I think we've talked about the different various platforms that are out there, Zoom, Microsoft Teams, WebEx, whatever it might be. Obviously Microsoft Teams is going to be the leader just because they own the desktop, they own the software, they own the applications, they can package it together. So,
interesting.
And the one thing that I would say is, as I talk about toward the end of Path to Teams, what Dan had just mentioned is through the pandemic, a lot of customers had locked themselves into solutions. And, I think right now it's just them trying to figure out where they are right now. And then ultimately they know where they want to be. It's just how they get there. It's that journey. It's that customer journey.
And I found it really insightful, the one graph that was presented during the summit, I think it was the keynote, showing kind of the study is showing that, over the next 3 years, that ramp towards, Teams Phone it almost begins to look like a very sharp, just
hockey stick.
Yeah, hockey stick straight up. By 2027, it's going to be millions and millions of users.
Yeah. Well, we were having discussions about this last night, and Tom, let's talk about the Microsoft ecosystem, because now what it seems like is, if you go back to Windows as an example, right? Teams seems to be the new Windows or the new Android or the new iPhone. That the ecosystem now is driving. It's like an operating system, it seems like, right, for a business.
Yeah, definitely. That's a big thing Microsoft pushes. It's kind of the center of your work. And actually, it's interesting because Teams has helped cement in like Microsoft as the tier one UC player, but also things like SharePoint and OneDrive and collaboration and app integration. So I see more people understanding now how to share documents and co-edit and work together, that we're always emailing files around piecemeal. It's really helped people understand how to leverage the rest of Office 365. And then phone is just a natural extension of that. It's like, well, I'm already doing my meetings here. I'm already doing internal VoIP here. Why would I not do phone here too?
Yeah, and there's we're going to cover, I think, in a slide here, we're going to talk about a Forrester research paper that was recently published. And what was interesting is, and what you're talking about is, operational efficiencies, right? I mean, you're looking at how organizations can efficiently work together and bridge the gap between all of their productivity.
So did we want to just jump into that? Are we ready to go?
I think we could just
let me just say one thing, because I thought it was super interesting what you guys just mentioned is, you look at Windows, the central operating system of your PC, right? Everybody's working on independent islands. That's basically the focal point that brings everything together, runs your PC, brings all your applications together. If you think about Microsoft Teams today, it's that focal point that brings the whole, UCAS, the whole unified communications platforms together. So it's almost like the new Windows of the UCAS.
Exactly. Like business productivity is going to be out of Teams because the applications now, and we can talk about the extensibility of this via ACS at some point, and I don't want to get too technical, but the ACS and Power Automate, there's some really interesting tools that Microsoft has put forth that you can look at and go, we can create business process from a simple, interface, a single interface.
Yeah.
So it gets pretty exciting. Let's kick off to that Forrester research paper, because there's some stats there that we pulled out of there, and we thought was just astonishing here. So if you look at this, so this is right from the Forrester. And if you want the Forrester research paper, if you're watching here, you can send me a note, or actually what I'll do is I'll put the link in the comments here for the Forrester research paper. So we'll have that. I'll do that here right now. But let's look at the stats here. Any takeaways?
I think the big thing about this is the payback period. There's not many technology solutions that you can put into an organization and see an ROI in less than 6 months, let alone less than 18 months. So, the technology, for me, that says that the solution isn't as expensive as people might think. And there must be some other, strategic benefit to this beyond just the cost or the cost savings. So there's, seeing a payback period of less than 6 months for anything, I don't think there's anything you can buy that has a payback period of 6 months or less than 6 months. And then here it is.
Some Google AdWords, maybe.
Yeah.
Okay.
Not when AI comes along and replaces Google. That's a different conversation.
Yeah, good point. Good point. That's going to be interesting because the stuff that we're talking about today hasn't even really moved into AI just yet, right? And then you see these numbers here that are pretty amazing for a business. Wait till AI is functionally deployed into an organization.
Yeah,
I like seeing these papers because they're interesting. Obviously they're sponsored, right? So you have to take them with a little bit of a pinch of salt. But what I like to do with them is break out the hard costs versus the productivity costs. Because when I do this with customers, you end up in an infinite debate about how much is the productivity saving. But even if you just take the hard costs around the existing PBX system, the support, and people often forget like the internal operational overhead, the ops team, patching, management, upgrades, SmartNet, all that good stuff. Like that stacks up really fast. And as we said earlier, everybody's on a trajectory to some kind of cloud solution. So they know they want to go to cloud. They know they want to get rid of all that legacy cost. So even sometimes if you go for the hard cost to do the ROI, it's still a reasonable time period.
No, it's a great point because if you think about an organization running on a legacy platform, we don't need to mention names. So, you guys joined into the call will know the platform that you're already on. And I think the key for that is in the past, you had to have a voice expert, you had to have a telco expert, you had to have someone, monitoring the network, patching the network and looking after all these different elements just to run your voice system. Where again, fast forward to where we are with Teams and we're broadcasting a live event from London with people right across the globe, and it really does change the capabilities. And this isn't a phone system we're on. This is a UC platform. It's something that we're able to push forward. So I think lots of cost savings, and they're real cost savings. It's not pretend, and we're not saving travel budgets. Like this is literally hard cost savings.
Well, and that's like Tom was saying. There's two different components. There's three different components that they break in this paper that break down. There's the actual telco costs, right? And there's the cost supporting that telco. And those are the two, Tom's is, you look at those and you're already paying back. And then the productivity, the breakdown, what was cool is that they actually broke down how they measured the productivity. Taking it a step further though, and I think this is the enterprise. And if you go down and large enterprise is what this slide represents. If we want to go to the next slide for small biz, the numbers stack up relatively the same, but even beyond those comparisons, there is another section in that paper further down that says, here are some things that have additional value that we really couldn't quantify and put a dollar on, but we like it because of all these other reasons also. So there's even more than what we actually think from a savings and efficiency and productivity perspective.
Yeah, I kind of liked what Tom said about, maybe you do start to debate, the cost savings on the productivity side. But, Garcia, you and I, we went and visited another big Teams player in kind of the collaboration ecosystem. And we got to see some demos of them doing stuff in the Power Automate side of things where, you see these cost savings and then you start to realize with the bolt-on capabilities where you go develop automation streams and workflows, now you're working on your whole OSS becomes a front-end interface through Teams. And now you're not pivoting to other tools necessarily. You're not needing to train people on multiple tools and views and clicks. And now your productivity comes up.
And it's funny, like I remember back in the day, and Tom and I have been in this voice space for quite a while. We used to run training sessions to staff on how to use Link or Skype for Business, etc. I mean, there's a place for training with Teams, but it's you click to answer a call. It's so intuitive. So, and again, that cost saving, you get a new staff member arrive, and if they've got an old Cisco phone on their desk, you've got to teach them how to transfer and pick up and consult and all those sorts of things. But with Teams, it's just simple.
And I want to take a step back for just a second, because for the non-technical people in the audience, because let me just say I'm surrounded by technical people here, so certainly outgunned here. But let me break it down, for business folks, okay? What they're talking about is ACS, it's Azure Communication Services, and there's another platform. Is it Power Automate? Is it Microsoft Power Automate? What was interesting is we saw a demo earlier today. And when we mean the environment or the Teams environment is extensible, I'll give you an example of what this call flow looked like. Now we're still talking communications, but we want to tell you how it ventured into business process. So a call comes in to the platform. The platform does a search on the customer CRM, which is outside of Teams, right? The CRM was HubSpot. So it does a search in HubSpot, and it sends a message back saying, well, this particular HubSpot account belongs to a different person or belongs to this person. So a call comes in, sees the account, finds the person that the account is assigned to, and then screen pops the account information to that person. So now you've merged business process, and this is not, everybody knows you can screen pop a CRM or you can screen pop whatever it is, when the call comes in. But this was adding intelligence to it by finding the right person first and then screen pop.
And it wasn't just a screen pop. It pulled the data back into Teams, presented it to the person receiving the phone call, and altered the calling name display so the person receiving the call knows, oh, this is so-and-so from my HubSpot account.
And I think what's interesting is there's been, telephony platforms and call center solutions out there that have done that for a long time, but it's been a different application, and now it's unified.
It's all in one. So Microsoft is making things extensible, bringing the business process right into that single platform.
Yeah,
so it's pretty amazing.
One of the things we didn't talk about, or at least address, was the mobility piece of, obviously remote office, and probably overused term in this environment, but I think going back to productivity, it's hard to put a number around it, but I think anybody running a business knows that their employees are gonna we're gonna work remote. There's gonna be hybrid work, and they want to know that when an employee flips their laptop open or fires up the PC, all their tools are there and everything works. So it's being able to be productive for wherever you are in whatever situation. So there's that piece of it, but then also it's the maintenance side of, if you're running multiple applications, so you flip your laptop up and you got all kinds of different applications that have to be working simultaneously for you to be productive, there's more maintenance associated with that. You got to have more people on staff to be able to support all those different applications. So I just look at this and go, one application like we talked about, Microsoft Teams is the new Windows of your desktop. It's going to help both on the cost side from a maintenance perspective, and then obviously on the productivity.
The report called out 1.5 days of productivity saving per week. I mean, that's unbelievably conservative. I mean, I know as a road warrior or an airplane warrior, I'm between countries all the time, and there is absolutely no way that it's only 1.5 hours a week for me. It's like I'd save half a day a week by using Teams. If I didn't have Teams, it's probably more. And you multiply that across an organization. And yeah, I'm a very heavy Teams user, but even if you got a fractional percentage of that, that's, for a large enough organization, it's millions of dollars.
Two points that Rick that you brought up that we didn't talk about, what that mobile looks like. So let's talk about, let's dive into mobile just a little bit. And there was one other about the I guess the FTEs that it saves. That report did call out how support reduced significantly. Right. So from 4 or 5, I can't remember what the team size was, but the report called out, it was 7 or 8 people down to 2 to handle moves, adds, and changes in an organization. Right. So
and those people are more generalist people now as well, because it's a nice web UI and they already know how to admin Microsoft Webby stuff. So previously you'd need someone who understood the PBX, and that would be their gig. And now for phone day-to-day moves, adds, and changes, it can be an IT, Microsoft generalist. And with the third-party cloud platforms from the telcos as well, that's got a lot slicker, as I'm sure Dan will talk about. You don't need to be like a telco wizard like you used to be.
We deployed yesterday Teams on a customer's environment in 8 minutes, and then activated the mobile component in 5 minutes, and demo done.
Live on stage in front of like 150 people.
Yeah, live on stage, and it worked. It worked. Okay, so let's break this down again. I'm going to bring it back to the business, right? Because technically, I think it's all cool, and we go, oh, mobile, okay, great. Is it a cell phone? I'm not quite sure. Let's break it down for the business. Give me an example or a solution that could be deployed using Teams Mobile, where the business guy can go, oh wow, I see now how that's going to work.
I mean, for me, I'm going to put my cowboy hat back on, because I'm from rural Montana, which is a state in the U.S. for our international listeners.
There you go.
I grew up in ranching, lots of trucking, in and out for cattle, for whatever, and big logistics, right? Where you're not going to have Wi-Fi. You're not going to have ways to connect data other than through the mobile networks. And so you see this solution for mobile and you go, man, that's logistic companies that want the Teams ecosystem for corporate facing, but now think about the synergies they bring to be able to enable mobile out to their field workers, their drivers, their warehouses, their stockyards, whatever the case may be. And obviously there's lots of use cases.
A lot of people say that, that's obviously, but we do that today. We've already got mobile phones that we've given to our staff. But the big thing people miss is the company doesn't have really control over those services, and they don't have visibility, or they can't apply policies over a traditional mobile network service. So what the mobile solution does is it effectively enables the admin or the company to have all of their staff utilizing the same level of calling plans and calling policies and consolidated voicemail in the one system, consolidated call history, etc. And when these people are on the road, they're using their cell phone like a normal cell phone. And if they jump back into the office, they can pull that call to Teams without losing anything, and vice versa. And ultimately, their telephone number just becomes their cell phone number.
And I think I was...
Also, they get compliance recording as well. So if they've got compliance recording for Teams, they get compliance recording for their cell calls as well, which is a really big deal in certain industries.
In the government space in the U.S., right? So call recording, the text messaging that could potentially come out of those mobile devices, all communications, records, they can all be stored now in Teams. And I want to go back just a second here. So when we say mobile, we're going, okay, we've got a Teams application on our PC, let's just say, and that's our business phone, right? And then I've got a cell phone. And so what we're saying is that phone that's on my PC is now ringing on my native dialer on my cell phone. It's not the Teams app. So I don't need to open the Teams app. Yeah. My cell phone number is my office number.
You ultimately, as the user, get to choose. If you're in a poor 5G, 4G coverage area like the heart of London, it's so congested you can't get it to work properly. You're going to take the call on what they call the VoLTE, or the native dialer. It's the normal iPhone, Android dialer interface to your carrier. But you get yourself out a little bit of London and you've finally got some good coverage or what have you. You can escalate that call to Teams and continue it on the data network.
I'm gonna date myself and Rick Coma for just a second, because about 15 years ago, now this is fixed mobile convergence is what we're talking about essentially, right? But a different than that, it's
actually real now.
It's now real, right? It's actually but Rick and I toured a data center. It was probably 15 years ago, and they had a giant. It was a BroadSoft platform carrier, and they had a giant Sprint cell tower essentially in that data center. And they're like, no, we're selling it to car dealers. And we're selling it to shipping organizations. And now this morning, and the only reason I remembered this is because this morning we're sitting here talking through business solutions. And I think about all the auto dealers. Well, they want the cell phone in their sales guy's hands. He's running around the lot right now. You don't have a phone system inside that's a different phone number than your cell phone. You've got one system. You've got one way to take your calls. All the records are there. Now you've got recording and you've got transcription, and it's searchable, so you can start to become a data-driven organization and look at what those analytics are for your organization, the performance, right? So
yeah, loads of first line, front line worker scenarios. Like police is another one that's super interesting because they need to always be contactable. And as Dan said, data isn't that great everywhere. So having one number to reach, whether they're on their laptop, doing back end work, or whether they're on the street doing policing, it's the same number, same presence, same voicemail, same messaging.
Yeah, it was yesterday. I think Brandon and I were talking about it, and I was explaining what you were just saying, Rick. Is we talked to a lot of companies about fixed mobile convergence, and they were deploying this in big warehouses with cellular antennas, and financially it just didn't make sense. It didn't make sense, and a lot of people were going that direction, but the business model made no sense at all.
To be fair, it was like 6 p.m. Rick Coma's time, 2 a.m. my time. So I can't promise I remember that conversation.
but it's true. We were sitting there talking about. I mean, we saw this 15 years ago, and it was just like we looked at that. I remember walking out of that data center, going, "Who's buying that? Like, why would they? Let me go plant this big antenna in a yard or something like that."
To get the same.
And now you activated a number in 10 minutes or whatever it was, and you've got a mobile phone and a Teams phone, and it's all
business case. Like if you think about large enterprises, they're going to have an IT team, and they don't really want the IT team to be an IT voice team, an IT networks team. They're consolidating the IT team. So in the end, large enterprise, these guys don't have to be experts on voice, but this scales all the way down to the smaller SMB space. If you're an organization of 5 employees, you've got the owner of the business, and they're what I call the accidental admin. They're the guy that's responsible for getting all this stuff sorted. They're the IT guy, they're the CFO, they're everything. So what's really important is, and to Tom's point from before, is there's a platform and a portal and a platform that, like a system that we use, that lets you just click a button and activate this and be in control of your own journey to Teams voice. If you've already got Microsoft for email, you can click a couple of buttons, and you guys do this today. You give people free trials. They can have 5 numbers. They can self-activate. They can literally, while we're on this call, they can be doing all this.
What's the next slide, Ryan? Let's. This is super interesting. We could talk about this all day long because it's this is what we're talking about, the changing environment in the telco space. Those were the unquantifiable components we talked about in that report. So I think we'll kind of move past the report piece now, because we'll just talk about the numbers out there for Teams these days, because the numbers are staggering. We all know it's 280 plus million users, daily users, 15 million PSTN subscribers today, if not more now.
There's 5 million added just last year.
5 million in the last 12 months. So it's definitely
so the growth is enormous, and we're going to talk about how Microsoft sees this and what Microsoft is doing to kind of enable people, but ultimately enable carriers to help their organizations make this migration. But if you look at the other stat, and it's not on here, but there's 50 million E5 users, and we kind of touched on it a little bit earlier. 50 million E5 users
already paying for the license,
already paying for the phone system, and 15 million PSTN subscribers. So there's this gap that is. I'll call it low-hanging fruit, but
well, I was going to say, what's interesting when you say E5, they're already paying for it. The Forrester report, if I read it correctly, they factored in an additional $8 just to play the safe side of
even.
They didn't consider that sunk cost in that report, I don't think, because most customers, so there's we're coming in on 400 million Office 365, so most customers are still E3, and they will pay that uplift. But even when you factor that in, you say it's still, the ROI still pays in.
Right. So my point being is, for those millions of E5 users not consuming, the ROI is
even higher. And that's what's interesting. Right. I think there's a strategic play there to help bridge that gap between the telco and obviously, if you look at from a size perspective, I mean, if they achieve their the growth that they're achieving now, they're going to eclipse the market. All of you guys.
There's a reason they're in that top right corner of the quadrant.
It's true. Well, interestingly, yesterday we saw a chart, and I wish I had it. They haven't sent it out yet, but there was a chart that showed the current providers, the current leaders in the space, and they showed the leaders of tomorrow in the space. And the shift is really fast. and it's really different, right? So it's interesting how collaboration now is in.
So let me ask you guys a question, just because you guys are obviously spending a lot of time talking about the stuff at the show. Also, is if you've got that many E5 licenses out there that aren't using the phone system, what's the feedback as to why these customers are not pulling the trigger?
I mean, quite simply, and you can very easily talk to Microsoft about this and even the customers about it. They've been sold the E5 license for its totality of security, compliance, and archiving emails, etc., data protection. There's a lot of benefits to the E5 license, and it's almost like, oh yeah, and we also give you the voice bit. But what happens in these organizations is they're using the majority of those feature sets, but they literally have just not realized that they've got this voice capability.
And I think it goes back to the segregation of IT administration responsibilities, right? You've got the corporate administrator who's dealing with corporate policy driven, Active Directory, enabling email, enabling, all of this stuff, OneDrive, and compliance side. And then you've got the legacy telephone guys who have their Cisco's, Mitels, whatever the on-prem, or even they're managing, the
UCAS platform.
The UCAS, the G12 UCAS platform maybe. And they don't talk to each other. They probably don't even get along.
Well, they do when they've got to try and get the solution in, because the network guys need to talk to the voice guys, but that's going now, because it really is just, it's application driven.
So I think some of it is ignorance is bliss.
Oh, I was going to say, is it mainstream? The enterprise who deals with their Microsoft partner on a regular basis, they clearly know what's included. I think the small biz who really doesn't have
they're focused on their business.
They don't have a trusted consultant that's by their side all the time, kind of, saying you can do this, you can do that. I think they just don't even know about it yet. But I think it's not even mainstream yet.
I think you're right, Rick. I think enterprise, they're slow moving. So even a lot of the orgs I work with are on the trajectories team's phone, but they're still going country by country, PBX by PBX. So it's going to be a big project, even though it's easy to light up technically. Just getting them to move takes a while. The SMB mid market is really exciting because they can move fast once they understand it. But they don't understand that, if you go back to, we were talking about Link and Skype, it was a hundreds of thousands of pounds project and investment to do that, and it was typically very big customers who could afford to do it. So those are the customers we were in 7-10 years ago. Now you can slam down a credit card and get exactly the same tech as the biggest banks in the world as an SMB and get all the advantages of it on a pay per month basis. So it's pretty crazy how SMB and mid market can get that level of technology, on a consumption model now.
And you go back in time to, I talk about the old exchange days, right? For small businesses out there who are relatively new, you guys are lucky. You fired up a few email accounts on Microsoft 365 and your business is live and ready to go. But not so long ago, we built servers and we built exchange servers and we built these networks to be able to handle email. And if we think about where we're going with the voice play, that's where the voice world is now. And we're in that migratory phase from on-prem voice, maybe some UCAS voice, but we're literally moving those people to the cloud and enabling Teams voice. We get a lot of customers say, I want to be able to replicate my configuration. Well, you can go live and you can hit a few buttons and be making phone calls straight away.
Let's take a step back real quick and talk about what that Microsoft ecosystem is called, right? Because for some people that just joined us, and maybe some people that aren't in this all day, every day, hear a term Operator Connect or the Microsoft ecosystem and may not know what that is. And what, Dan, why don't you tell us what the Microsoft ecosystem or the Operator Connect ecosystem is?
Yeah, so essentially Microsoft, when they released Teams Phone, so the ability to transition your corporate telephony from another vendor to Teams, they had a few ways of enabling this technology and service. And for a lot of Microsoft partners out there, they made a lot of money consulting and being able to enable and activate that phone capability within Teams. The start of 2021 or end of 2021-22 timeframe, Microsoft released this Operator Connect, and they chose a select few of operators globally to launch the platform with and enable those operators to instantly and easily activate the phone capability for their customers. G12, Operator Connect, right? And what it enables the customers of G12 to do is easily transact Teams phone, port telephone numbers, add net new telephone numbers, set up their call flows, assign those to users just as easily as you would an email address or a mailbox on that customer. So the Operator Connect program is essentially the automation, and we're in a world of automation, but the automation of what used to be bucket loads of professional services, and it used to be these large engagements where you have to scope and deploy. Whereas today it's you want some telephone numbers, you pick those just as easy as you would booking a flight. It's probably quicker.
But that may be quick now, but I think Rick and Brandon could probably attest to the complexity that it took to enter the Microsoft Teams ecosystem. Yeah. So
to get on that blessed list takes a while.
yeah, and
it's I mean, obviously Microsoft is being very selective and very meticulous about, you're going to play by our rules. This is our sandbox. You're going to meet our qualifications, and rightfully so, right? That's how
you're representing the quality, and you're the backbone for the voice part of it.
That's right. We need to be able to hold that SLA for Microsoft, and so it does. It makes it a tedious process at times. Probably a good thing I work from home, because there was some frustration, and not against Microsoft, just how many times you had to rinse and repeat something to get there. But
what that does is it translates now to a direct benefit to these businesses, because they get the quality of Microsoft, the quality of G12 working together on this Operator Connect program, and the customer doesn't have to worry about the network or the service quality and the things that you guys had to do in the background. They're just going to get a reliable phone service. And Microsoft released their numbers December of last year. 99.99% reliability. They've got 99.99% uptime, and again, we won't talk about other platforms, but some of those were down in the low 90s.
Well, that translates into, it's like 53 minutes of downtime a year is what that translates into, which is if you look at a Cisco platform, or everyone, you can look at your legacy system and go, it's rock solid, but the reality is at some point it's taken down from this. So it's taken
Microsoft's global. It's a 53 minutes of downtime globally for their phone.
Yeah, it's really impressive. Well, since we're talking about the ecosystem, why don't we walk through what that looks like? What's the next slide? I think let's see where we're at. So we'll skip we should probably skip the Teams features for time, because I think we can talk about the phone system features that Teams has all day long. But every phone system has their core functionality, whether there's call queues and
I think you just make a plug for Tom's platform if you want to know about the phone features.
That's a great.
Appreciate that.
So Tom is the co-founder of a platform called Empowering Cloud. And Tom, why don't you tell us what you're doing at Empowering Cloud?
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, so I've been in the Microsoft UC space for well over a decade now, and what we're building with Empowering Cloud is a community free to access platform with lots of training content, advisory content. There's a few good sponsors backing it, including G12, thank you, and PingCo. Which means it's all free to access for individual organizations, partners, whoever it is. And we're just trying to keep everybody up to date and informed, because this space moves super fast. And it's not just me, there's 16 subject matter experts from around the world who are contributing content. So yeah, head over to empowering.cloud. You can sign in free with LinkedIn or email. And
just on that point, we tried to pull the slide from Microsoft, but they had 450 plus features released for Teams since its initial launch.
Yeah, it moves super fast. And that's kind of my full-time job, is keeping up with what's going on in Teams and in the space. And some of those are, tiny little features, buttons moving. Some of those are revolutionary features, like putting AI into Teams. And a nice thing is, if you're on this Teams train, you're getting that value added in month after month. You're not doing another forklift up project in 2 years to go to the next version of Skype or the next version of Link, as we used to. You're once you're in, you're getting all that benefit month by month.
I say to a lot of our customers, if there's a feature that you don't quite have exactly as you need in Teams, just wait a few hours. It'll be deployed. It's like the weather in Melbourne.
I think that's like the weather in London.
It snowed here on Wednesday.
Yeah.
So one thing that I wanted, because I know you guys were just talking about Operator Connect, and I think to wrap that piece up as we come back toward the feature pieces, I mean, I think the biggest thing is it removes the complexity and the fear around connectivity and reliability, because that piece is handled by the operator connect providers. You've got a select group. Microsoft has basically approved this group of carriers to provide that piece of it. And, again, you as a new customer, you can come on and go, okay, now I know that, I don't have to worry about that piece. I can sign up, get on this platform, pick one of these providers, and that's not going to be a concern for me. And then it just comes down. Which I think the biggest thing is going to come down to is, and we'll talk about that as we talk about path to teams and so forth. But it's the transition, right? It's a new platform. It's a new transition. I'm going to have to move customers from my old system, which they understand and are used to this new system. But ultimately, once they get on this new system, I think we're all believers that this is where they're going to end up. This is where they're going to stay, and this is where they're going to be for the long haul.
I was just going to say, Rick, I mean, this is that pathway to teams. I got a free G12 T-shirt, so I'm super excited about that. And I think you should really talk about that, because a lot of organizations, the pathway might be scary. They're not really sure where they're going to go. And I think it's really important. I'd love to hear it, because I've actually got to fly out. This is a live London event. I've got to fly out tonight, so I'll be leaving shortly. And I don't know, Rick, if it's good, if you can maybe talk through some of that.
Do we have a slide for it?
We have a slide. We have a slide.
You can put a slide up, or I can just kind of touch on it too, and then we can go back if Dan has to go and touch on some other things before we finish up.
Touch on any of this.
Let's do this real quick. Let's let Rick do the piece, and we'll come back to the piece. Go for it, Rick.
So here's where I think path to teams, which we just announced this week, becomes really interesting. Is if you go back, the whole group here talked about a lot of things and a lot of good things about what it's going to take to get these customers onto Microsoft Teams. We talk to customers a lot, and we hear a lot of feedback from customers. And I think the biggest thing is just them making that transition. I don't think there's a lot of hesitancy around, is it the right solution? Is this where I'm going to be, over the next few years? I think a lot of them have already made that commitment. It's just, how do I get there? And that's what, we've seen that in the past. We've I'm probably the oldest one here, so I've seen as we go all the way back to traditional phone systems, but it's that transition to move from one system to the cloud and having to retrain the organization. So to move through that whole transition, what we've done is deployed what we consider our path to teams. And what that basically does is it helps our customers move from wherever they are today, whether it's an on-prem PBX system to if they're in a cloud system today, if they're on our cloud platform, to get them all the way to Teams, but do that in a way that they can transition without having major disruptions to their organization. Because I think, that's obviously one of the concerns. And that was probably one of the reasons I was asking about customers that have an E5 license today, but they may not be pulling the trigger on the phone system yet. And I think a lot of that is hesitancy around how much disruption there's going to be to my organization to get there. So, with Path to Teams, what we've looked at is, if you're on a traditional, PBX and you've got SIP trunking from us, we can provide, the step-by-step process to really help you dip your toe in the water throughout the process. So you don't have to go, I'm going to go from a Cisco PBX all the way to Microsoft Teams in a week. And then, all of a sudden I'm going to introduce this to my company and everybody's got to learn it and go. And those that are on a traditional PBX system may need to get to the cloud first. And again, they may need to take baby steps, and maybe they go from, SIP trunking, Cisco Avaya Mitel to, our UCAS system as an example. Get familiar with the cloud, get familiar with, the ability for their employees to be able to work remote, have mobile capabilities. And then from there, once they get familiar with that, and we can really help them through that process by building their system for them, designing it, having their call flows meet exactly their business process, really integrating that with their business process. And then once they start thinking about Microsoft Teams, instead of going all into the Teams phone system, we've got multiple steps along the way. They could, maybe the first one would be adding an embedded device into Teams, where they can start seeing what the values are of integrating Microsoft Teams. or they can go in and keep our UCaaS system as an example. And with that license, because they already have the phone system license, we can integrate that for them, meaning they take the actual native dialer for the soft phone, native dialer for the mobile device. They're still on our UCaaS system, but ultimately knowing that their final destination is going to be the Microsoft phone system. So, they're that much closer. So again, Path to Teams is just helping them get through that phase process. And one of the big things that we promote with Path to Teams is you come on, whether you're buying SIP trunking, whether you're buying UCaaS, whether you're buying any of these other integrated products we're talking about, once you're under contract with us, we can move you in and out of all of these different products throughout the entire journey. So you're not going with a provider, getting locked into one thing, and you're locked in there for 3 years, knowing that in a year and a half you want to get to Microsoft Teams, and then you're stuck for another year and a half in that contract before you can get out. So we don't want customers to do that. We want customers to obviously have a good solid journey that makes sense for them, but not get locked into specific products along the way that force them to delay where they're ultimately going to go. So
there's a couple
in a nutshell,
yeah,
I mean, in a nutshell, that's why we put together, our Path to Teams offering. And, I think it's going to be very beneficial for those, customers that are looking for that, that real smooth journey along the way.
I got a couple of things I want to do. I want to talk about specific to that, but I know, Dan, you need to run.
Yeah, I've got 2 minutes before I got to go.
Okay. Well, why don't we? I want to talk about the SIP gateway component that Microsoft Teams now has, because if I think about the migration of customers, and maybe they're on our UCaaS, maybe they're on another UCaaS provider, and they've got devices sitting out that maybe they don't want to reinvest in,
They're investing in
CapEx.
phones, right? They've got these phones on desks. They've already spent the money.
Yeah, and so they can take this journey with us and utilize their physical devices on a UCaaS platform, on our UCaaS platform, and then even use them as they migrate to the Teams platform. So their investment isn't wasted at all.
Are you seeing that a lot, Tom? Are you seeing that customers want to be able to, migrate and use their legacy physical phones in a migration path? What are you seeing?
It does come up from time to time. It depends on what handsets they've got. I mean, most people are going headset first now because of the hybrid and mobility nature. So it's just a case of whether they want to sweat those assets. And there's still a case for handsets in certain orgs and certain scenarios. So it does come up. But that SIP gateway also gives you the ability to do DECT. So you can do DECT handsets. You can do door intercoms. PA systems are coming. So some of those cases you have in business where you're not traditional endpoints can integrate to Teams as well.
Do you need DECT handsets anymore with mobile?
Well, yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? You've got all the use cases on your kind of menu, as it were. But yeah, mobile does provide an interesting opportunity there.
The DECT case, like we see intrinsically safe ones, right? They're in a chemical plant somewhere where they can't have a mobile device, so they've got to use what's called intrinsically safe. It's not emitting anything. It's been tested, and unfortunately, old iPhone isn't intrinsically safe.
There we go.
One thing, step back again to Path to Teams. The other benefit here is, once those numbers are dropped into G12 as an example, we can transition those numbers across any of these platforms, and you don't have to go through the whole porting process associated with it. The other thing I think we've seen with these customers is, a lot of them want to test it, right? You're seeing, they might have our integrated product or might have our UCaaS platform, but they may have 10 users set up on our Operator Connect on Microsoft Teams. We can easily just move those numbers over, let them test that platform. And again, we can do it either on a managed level where we manage their Microsoft phone system for them, or, if they've got internal staff that can do it themselves. But again, they're getting comfortable with the process. They're getting comfortable with that journey and how they're going to take their customers to Microsoft Teams. And I just feel like that's just a big advantage for these customers that are thinking about that process, and will help them make that transition.
Helps them tiptoe in, yeah.
Man, if you got to go.
I was just going to say, I do have some stuff that I was going to cover, but you guys have got the platform, you guys have got the capability of showing it. So, my technical friend over here, Brandon, can show you guys that. And
what does that ecosystem look like? Yeah.
I just want to say, really, thanks guys for having me on here. And the last 2 days have been a real learning experience and cementing just really how strategically important Teams is for every organization.
Yeah.
So
Thanks for coming by.
guys. Cheers.
Catch you later.
Thanks, Dan.
Cheers,
All right,
Dan.
I want to call something else out on the path to team strategy, just so our viewers are aware that, you know, when we get you to kind of that first team's experience, it's not a limited experience. It's not a subset of features. Once the team's phone is activated, even in our hybrid environment where we're still the hosted PBX behind the scenes, you get the full Teams phone feature set, right? You've already paid for it. We're not holding that feature set back.
So call recording,
Call recording is
call
there.
transcription.
Call transcription is there. You get the whole Teams phone. And I think that's important for our listeners and viewers to hear is,
What about embedded texting? I mean, because right now there was some comments out there. Thank you, Rob. Some comments about embedded texting. What about texting?
yeah, I mean, I don't see the full context of the question. What I'll say is we have embedded texting in Teams. We can manage that, that journey as well, taking your existing SMS feature set and moving it into the Teams ecosystem. Fully supported. We follow all the compliance, at least for us as a service provider in the US. If you're from another country and listening, well,
Tom, how relevant is texting right now in Teams? What are you seeing?
Yeah, it's interesting. Like, I don't see loads of Teams customers asking for it in enterprise. Where I do see it is SMB mid-market. Some of the other UCaaSs have had that for a while, so they're used to it as a feature. Teams has it natively in Teams Consumer, but doesn't have anything in Teams Enterprise/Business. So as you rightly said, it's a third-party play there, where the carrier brings or an app provider brings that solution to the Teams customer.
Is it? And I don't mean to put you on the spot here, but you do keep really good tabs on Microsoft's development and deployment of things. Is it on a roadmap? Would you say it's on a roadmap? Not on a roadmap?
Yeah, it's definitely been talked about as coming, and you can see it's in consumer. So Microsoft have the architecture with ACS to do SMS right now. So they've got the infrastructure. One of the challenges is there's two types of SMS. So there's SMS where you can have a dedicated number. So things like you text your school and the school can text back saying if they're closed for snow or whatever, like a service number. And then there's SMS, you having your primary mobile number, also servicing Teams, a bit like Apple do with Mac, that kind of thing. And I think a lot of people want that native one number experience. Now that's easier on Android with RCS and the way they do text. With Apple, it's a bit of a closed ecosystem, so it'll be interesting to watch this space to see if kind of Microsoft and others can bridge that gap. But yeah, I think on some timeline it'll come along, because it's all about converged comms.
and I would say, I don't know that we see a huge demand for SMS either. We do see it, but when you get into the collaboration ecosystem, your reach is really deep anyway.
You've got new tools available to you, right? So the extensibility of Teams with ACS, you've got new tools available to you that make it easier for your customer's customer, right, to have a better experience. And I think ultimately, when we think about the aggregation of all these services, we think of productivity number one, and then customer experience number two, right? Those two things are really the big benefactors in migrating into a Teams ecosystem. You just get a whole new set of tools, and they're easy to migrate to, right? If you're already using it, you're already familiar with it, they're easy to migrate into and easy to build off of.
Yeah, that customer conversation, it's longer than we've got time for today, but it's called virtual appointments in Teams, and it's an add-on feature, so it's an extra $7 to $10 per user for the users that you want it to have. But you can now have your customers turn up to the website and do a full video call, screen sharing from your website, branded like you, into Teams, which again, that would have been a super expensive solution back in the day, but that's actually baked into Teams as part of ACS now. So if you're a pharmacy, or you deal with any kind of customers where they need to get to you via a mobile app with video or the browser, you can give that level of experience through Teams without having masses of infrastructure.
Fantastic. Very good. Okay, Coma, any let's start to kind of wrap things up. We've got 4 minutes. We'll be cognizant of everyone's time. What parting comments, Rick?
No, I just number one, I'm glad that you guys had a good show. It sounds like there's obviously a lot of buzz around Microsoft Teams and the opportunities. We're excited to be part of this program, and we're in this thing. We see the benefits of it, and we're trying to do everything we can to really make that customer journey and access to Microsoft Teams easy and beneficial for our customer base.
Perfect. And Tom, Empowering Cloud. What's the update for Empowering Cloud?
Yeah, I mean, so it's all go, isn't it? The market's really busy. We're really excited about what's coming. So keeping everybody updated is our goal. I'd say in terms of takeaways from the show, and I guess this session as well, is like if you've already got Teams on the desktop, you've got to at least look at this and give it a try. And I think you summed up there all there. You don't have to go big bang. You don't have to move your entire org. Like, get started, see how you feel about it. But it definitely feels like where a lot of the market's going.
That's a great segue. The get started segue. There's another slide behind there, Brandon. There's a real simple call to action. If you actually want to learn more about Microsoft Teams, the Microsoft Teams ecosystem, the technical aspect, Empowering Cloud does a great job of putting a lot of free content out there for you to understand what's technically capable. On the business side, if you're interested in learning more about Microsoft Teams and Teams Phone and the path to Teams, and you're an enterprise out there or an agent or a partner, and you want to work with G12 and understand what capabilities we have to deliver to your customers, send us a note, book a meeting with us, give us a call. We're really accessible all the time. We live this all day, every day, and love chatting with customers and creating solutions for organizations that bring them that efficiency and the productivity that we now see happening in the Microsoft Teams ecosystem. So, Brandon, parting comments?
No, I'll just echo that it was a very productive couple days, and I'm amazed I learn something new every day. It's like I turn around and someone's sending me a screenshot, or I'm reading an article, or I'm on Empowering Cloud, and it's like you just can't keep up. It's an exciting space to be in.
Exciting space for sure. Well, everyone, that's gonna be a wrap. That's G12, Empowering Cloud, and PingCo. I want to thank everybody for coming on here. We're going to give everyone back 2 minutes of their time. Thank you so much for joining. We'll see you guys later. Until next time, next Friday, we'll see you at 12
Thanks,
noon.
guys.
Time. See you, Rick. See you, Tom. Take care, everyone.
All right. Bye-bye.